Rolling into 2020, the weather has been absolutely appalling. Recently we've just been hit by one storm after another. The 2020 list of storm names were already 5 in and we're only in mid-February. My normal garden out back, which is normally a picturesque beautiful green landscape, is now just a sodden nightmare. Now what does this mean for the scheduling of videos? Well, unfortunately I had one scheduled where I was going to set up some shelters out back. I can't do that now because I don't have the facilities to dry those shelters. The shelters in question would be tarps on the floor, tarp and hammock combos, bivvy bags, and classic tents. Now the fifth and final, not many people cover this, but it's improvised shelters, as in shelters you build yourself out of any materials available. We'll get to that in a moment. So firstly we're going to look at tarps. Now I believe personal preference is everything, but for me tarps are the most versatile shelter you can have. I've used them in literally every configuration, but my preferentials are A-frame, lean-to, or the tent format you've seen me make before. It's a universal tool. If you can imagine it, if you can make it work, it'll work. And as long as the tarp is watertight, it's a shelter. Very universal, very versatile tool to have with you on any occasion, regardless. That's my personal preference. Secondly, we're going to look at hammock and tarp combo. Now you can get hammocks that are a waterproof cocoon, but they're not very breathable. So most people do the accommodating. Now as you can see from the pictures earlier, me and my brother, when we did hammock camp, we used standard A-frame, but what you can do is you can seal the ends of those to make a sort of hovering tent out of your tarp. My only issue with hammocks is, and I tried each sleeping configuration from straight on, bent in the middle, to 90 degrees, so you're basically holding the hammock completely open, and on a 45 degree, but my big issue with the hammock was that it moved too much. So that's why I didn't go for that. Or I don't anymore. I've still got one, but I don't use it anymore because I just don't get a good sleep in them. Moving forward, bivvy bags. Now most people combine again bivvy bags with a tarp, but a bivvy bag is basically just a very, very small tent. You'll be able to get your sleeping mat and sleeping bag in there, but that's about it. You're going to have to find somewhere safe and dry to put any of your other items that you're not going to be using when you sleep. They can also be quite expensive because they have to be breathable. A lot of them come with a little mesh net and a little band to hold it up at the head end, but otherwise it's basically just a cocoon for you to sleep in. Good if you're going on a long hike and you don't need a lot of space, but if you want somewhere safe for your bag, you'll need something a bit bigger. Which brings us on to tents. Now, I for the longest time haven't used a tent, but I've actually engaged and bought one recently for two reasons. One, so I have a private space to operate in that's windproof. Now, a tarp will provide that if I set it up in the manner that allows it, which again, I can do that. But what I want is a dry footing, somewhere to put all my stuff if the ground is wet, and also windproof and a bug net door. So I don't have to carry a massive bug net with me and then find a way of sticking that up as well as the tarp and all the rest of it. But what I am going to do is I'm going to have my tarp and a tent set up. So I can have the tarp as a patio area, or I can set it up however I need it with the tent nearby, so that I've got a dry operating space next to a confined sleeping quarters with a small storage area inside it. Very cheap, very light tent, but for what I'm going to be using it for, it's going to be ideal. And finally, improvised shelters. Now, I've had a lot of experience over the years making these. You can go for anything you can imagine with a tarp, you can do with improvised shelters, provided you have the materials available. They're normally called debris shelters or other. And they come in they come in lean-to, they come in A-frame, they come in, I think they call them diamond A-frames, where one side goes to the ground. I've had many years of experience playing with these and making them, and they are a lot of fun. but ultimately they have to be functional. Now, I would only go to one of them if it was necessary. If, say, I had a tarp and that ripped and then I built a shelter, I'd do that. I normally carry an emergency, like, small tarp or poncho, which can be made into an emergency shelter. And I'm now carrying an emergency shelter bag. So, you know, but in an emergency situation, I can build shelters, and it's something that children should be taught, I believe, so that when they get to adulthood, they've got that skill available. But there you go, there's 5 different types of shelter. Most people only cover 4. Now, 2 to 3 of them actually involve tarps. All 4 could. Like, most people who go tenting carry a tarp with them for an outdoor space, like an open cooking area and such. Tarps are, by my definition, the most universal tool to a camper. I think they're amazing.